Right, in this lesson we are going to be looking at the relationships between the sides and angles of triangles that are not right angles. So if we are looking at classifying triangles in terms of the sizes of their angles, we can say that angles other than right angle triangles, that is a triangle with a 90-degree angle. One of the angles will be 90-degree angle. We call that a right angle triangle. And the other two, we call them an obtuse triangle or an acute angle. So the types of triangles we have, when we look at their angles, we've got a right angle triangle, right? This one, when you want to solve to find the dimensions of the sides, you use Pythagoras. And then we have got number 2, we have got an acute angled triangle, and 3, we've got obtuse angled triangles. So in our previous 2 lessons, we dealt with right angled triangles using Pythagoras to find the dimensions. Now we want to look at acute angled triangles and obtuse angled triangles and see how can we tell if a given triangle is an acute or obtuse angled triangle. So for an acute angled triangles, what we must know is that if a triangle is acute angled, then let's say, for example, we've got our triangle here, ABC, where angle A is 45 degrees, angle B is 55 degrees, angle C is 80 degrees, right? And the given corresponding sides are there. The longer side is the side that is opposite the largest angle. So in this case, you can see side AB is opposite angle C and is the largest. If we square that side, we get C squared is equals to 5 squared, which is 25. Now, I repeat, the largest side or the longer side is always opposite the largest angle. So in this case, it's AB, which is opposite the angle 80 degrees. And now, if we square the longest side, we see is 25. And we find the sum of the squares of the other two sides. The sum of the squares of the other two sides, which is a squared plus b squared, which will give us 33.21. Now, we compare the squares, right? We compare the square of the longest side and the sum of the squares of the other two shorter sides. And you will see that 25 is less than 32.21. Which means here we can conclude that for acute angles or for acute angled triangles, the square of the longer side is less than the sum of the squares of the other sides. I repeat, the square of the longer side is less than the sum of the squares of the other two sides in a acute angled triangle. Moving on, let's look at the obtuse angled triangle. So for an obtuse angled triangle, again, we're going to look at them. So if triangle ABC is obtuse angled, then the longer side, in this case, is the one which is opposite the larger angle again. The same thing with the acute angles. The longer side is always opposite the larger angle. In this case, the longer side is AB. So the AB, which is small letter c squared, gives us 36. And if we find the sum of the squares of the other two shorter sides, which is a squared plus b squared, it gives us 25. Now, if we compare the two, we can see that the square of the longer side is greater than the sum of the squares of the two shorter sides. So we can conclude that in an obtuse angled triangle, the square of the longer side is greater than the sum of the squares of the other two shorter sides. Okay, so we have seen now that that is how we can differentiate between an acute angled triangle and an obtuse angled triangle. Right, let's do some examples. So let's say you are given an example. They say that in a triangle ABC, side AB is equals to 10 units and side BC is equals to 7 units and the side AC is equals to 9 units. And they say, determine if the triangle ABC is an acute angled triangle or an obtuse angled triangle. So what we are going to do, we do a sketch of the triangle, right? ABC, we put the dimensions in there, and then we find AB squared. What is our AB squared? What is our BC squared? And what is our AC squared? So we're looking for AB squared, BC squared. So AB squared is 100, BC squared is 49, and AC squared is 81. So we are going to say between these three, which side is the longest side? We can see the longest side is AB. So we want to see what is the relationship with the other side. So we find the sum of the other two sides. So in this case, our longer side is what? AB, and AB squared is 100. So now we're going to find the sum of the squares of the other two shorter sides, which is going to be 49 plus 81, which is BC squared plus AB AC squared, which is going to be 130. Right, which is going to be actually right. So it's going to be 130. Right, so it's going to be 130, and if we compare the two, you can see that 100 is less than 130. Right, 100 is less than 130, meaning we can conclude that this triangle ABC is acute angled. So we can conclude that ABC is acute angle since the square of the longer side is less than the sum of the squares of the other two sides. Let's look at another example. Example 2. In example 2, you are given that in a triangle ABC, they say side A is equals to 12 units, and side B is equals to 6 units, and side C is equals to 8 units. Now they want you to determine if the triangle ABC is acute angled or obtuse angled. So what we are going to do again, we sketch the triangle, right, and we put the necessary dimensions in like that, and then we can see that BC is the longer side. So now we find the square of AB, we find the square of BC, and we find the square of AC. So we are finding the squares there, right? And now the longer side here, we can see that the longer side is BC. So BC squared will be equals to 64. BC will be equals to 144, sorry, which is the longer side. And then the sum of squares of the other two sides will be AB squared plus AC squared, which will give us 100. Now comparing the two, we can see that the square of the hypotenuse, which is 144, is greater than the sum of the squares of the other two sides. From this, we can conclude that triangle ABC is obtuse. Okay. Now, what have we learned in this lesson? We have learned that if a triangle is acute angled, then then we can say that the square of the longer side is less than the sum of the squares of the other two sides. Right? And if a triangle is obtuse angled, then the square of the longer side is greater than the sum of the squares of the other two sides. Okay, so you can use that to determine or to classify given triangles. Please try the quiz or the task in your textbook to see if you understood. Otherwise, you can replay the video again.